Hi, I'm Doranita Tyler, and I'm an insurance agent with American Family located in Lynwood, Illinois. And I'm excited to be here today with Gwen Sterk of Sterk Family Law. And Gwen, so excited to have you today. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. Well, I'm excited to be here today too, Doranita. I'm Gwendolyn Sterk, and I'm of Sterk Family Law. We're located in Orland Park, Illinois, and we do family law and estate planning. So we service our clients in those areas of law, and we also have a vast resource center of which Doranita is a member, so that we can refer our clients because we believe in a holistic approach to family law and estate planning. That it's not just the legal piece, but it's all of us working together.
And that was what just really impressed me the most when I had an opportunity to walk into your office and see the resource center. I mean, it's a whole room, not just a wall. So I think that's amazing. What inspired you to do that? Where did that inspiration come from?
Well, I've been practicing now for over 30 years, and it was early on in my career when I realized that I could only help somebody in a limited capacity. So my first contact was a gentleman, and we ate at a pancake house and decided that we were going to become referral sources. It wasn't going to be money back and forth, but we knew that his clients needed help and my clients needed help. And that's where it started. And I still give credit to Mike years ago because we sat down and we knew that this is what we need to do for each other, and that's how it grew from there.
Okay, I think that's great. And that was key what you said, that it's not about changing the little dollars back and forth for the referrals, but the bigger aspect that can come out of it. And I think that's such a wonderful thing. So today, Gwen, the reason why I wanted to talk with you, COVID, of course, and is what's high on everyone's mind. And what I'm finding, though, is that people are slowing down and they have more time to talk. Because normally in my area in insurance, it's normally a set it and forget it. I don't want to talk about it until I need it. And at that point, it could be too late. One particular thing that I'm finding a constant thread is with my aging clients and their adult children, and some of the frustrations that I'm seeing that they're having. And at this point, there's nothing that I can, I'm only limited in how I can help them. So I wanted to reach out to you today to see if you can kind of give some insight for people. So first and foremost, what is estate planning? Is that something that just set aside for the rich and famous?
Absolutely not. Estate planning is for everybody, and everybody needs to take the time to do it. If you're that child or if you're that parent, both of you need to have it done. An estate plan not only directs what's going to happen to your assets upon your death, but it also does very important planning provisions in the documents themselves. One is with regard to who's going to care for you. So we all know, as our parents are getting older, they're going to be alive for many years to come, hopefully, and we're going to have to deal with the economics of that. We're also going to need to deal with decision making. So you can provide in your estate plan for who can provide health care, power of attorney for health care, power of attorney for property, so that if your parent's unable to do it, who's going to act? And then if you have siblings, who's going to make that decision? Because you certainly don't want a conflict while mom's laying in bed there at the hospital and the siblings are arguing and fighting. The time is now to get those documents in order and to make sure you have it in place.
Wow. So it sounds like those documents can truly keep the peace in your family.
They absolutely can. And there's many documents that you should consider, not just one. Mm-hmm. So don't go online and just do a will. That's not going to satisfy it. So a will is appropriate for those people who don't have assets that are going to be subject to probate. And a lawyer is going to tell you whether or not your assets are such that you should put them in a trust. For example, if you have a residence, you should have that residence in a trust. It can be a land trust in Illinois. It could be a revocable trust that you put it in. And there's other trust planning mechanisms that are available. But a trust will allow your home to pass without you having to go to probate court after the death of a loved one. And it's real important that that take place. And you shouldn't just go add somebody's name to the title to your house, because that can have real tax consequences. It can have consequences in the event that that person you added on has some issue in their family that may lead to divorce or something else. You really need to sit down with an attorney and look at your options for a trust. You also can do some kind of planning as long as you're well in advance as to some kind of asset preservation planning. But most importantly, you're going to deal with, if you're a loved one and you have children, who's going to care for those children in the event you get ill? Look, but for the grace of God, we are all going to age. We all are born and we all die, with the exception of something that might intervene depending on your religious beliefs. But the point is, you got to prepare for what's going to happen until you die. So you need to name somebody as your guardian. If the court's going to appoint a guardian, you can do that in your will. You can put people in order. You could say it's going to be person A, and if they're not available or unwilling to act, it's going to be person B or person C. because you want to make sure that you're naming and designating that person in advance. Now that is if a guardian has to be appointed, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Mhm.
But you can go one step further. While you're alive, you can appoint a power of attorney for healthcare, and that person will designate who's going to talk to the doctor, who's going to make the decision. But not only that, you can prepare as part of that documentation your advance directives. Do you want to have life-sustaining efforts put in place? Do you want to be allowed to die? Do you want them to remove food? There are different things that you can direct. And so then you're directing your child. You're not putting your grown adult in that position to make that decision on your behalf. You're not causing conflict among your children about that. And you've taken care of what's going to happen. And again, your power of attorney for healthcare can name person A, and if they're unable or unwilling to act, person B, etc. The same thing can occur with regard to your property. So if you're unable to write your checks, if you're unable to pay your bills, these are things that become very important for you to have somebody designated who can take care of those affairs as well. And that encompasses everything included in estate planning. So you can see why it's important for the adult parent to have that done.
Right. Okay, so the power of attorney, what happens when the person dies? Is that still in effect? Can I still take this document and go and handle affairs with the power of attorney? Does it still give me that ability?
No, it would terminate upon death. So that's
Okay.
where the will would kick in. And then there are things such as a small estate affidavit. And then depending on the assets, if you didn't create a trust, you may have to do what you call probate the estate,
Okay.
which is where you file an action in the county court, and then you present the assets, you notify the heirs, and the court oversees to make sure that everybody is appropriately paid and that consistent with the law and or your will, the assets are distributed.
Wow. So then now in a probate, that's an easy process, right? And is it an
Easy process on one level, but it can take a very long time. So if you can avoid probate, that's always our objective when we sit down with a client to do estate planning. So for example, if we have an estate planning and they don't have real estate, we might be able to do it by designating, survivors in the event of death. So payable on death to X, Y, or Z. But you can't do that with a home, which is where those trusts come in, which is why we don't automatically say you need to have a trust. We come in, have you talk to us, and we help you determine whether or not a trust is appropriate. Because if you have your asset, for example, your residence in a trust, the trust is its own individual in Illinois. It's hard to comprehend that. But just like a business is considered an individual, so can a trust be considered an individual. And that asset can transfer beneficiaries, but still not change the ownership, meaning it's in the trust. So you could say, my residence is going to pass to my 3 children per Sturpies, which gets a little complicated. I don't want to explain that here. But let's say you're going to have a third, a third, a third for your children. You don't have to probate it if you appropriately put that asset in trust. So that can avoid a lot of time, money, and expense.
Okay. So, and then since we're talking about trust, is that something that, like, what if someone has established a trust, but a couple years now they decided, I don't want to do it? Is that something that you can reverse, or are you locked into a trust forever?
No, you're not locked unless it is an irrevocable trust, and they're very rare and done in very limited circumstances. Most trusts are revocable. So we can take that trust, look at that trust. If it's appropriate, we might be able to amend that trust to what you wish today, or we could terminate that trust depending on the terms. So if you already have an estate plan comprised of a will and or a trust, you should bring that to your estate planning attorney so that they can review it. They might be able to amend it. And if you amend a will, it's called a codicil. And so there might be some quicker ways to make those amendments that way.
Okay. Okay. That's good information to know, Gwen. That's very good information to know. And what about for those who are in a situation where they haven't done anything? I mean, they haven't prepared. And again, I'm focusing on adult children who are caring for their aging parents. The parents haven't done the proper needs, and now they are at a point where they really can't make decisions. What do you do when you get to that point?
What you do is you determine, one, whether or not your aged parent is capable still and has the mental capacity to create an estate plan. Unfortunately, many of them are not at that capacity level anymore. If they are at that level, and if you're out there listening today and your parents don't have an estate plan, and even you don't have an estate plan, Basic 101, make this your priority and get an estate plan in place with the advanced directives and powers of attorney. That's number one. But number two is, if your aged parent is no longer able to make decisions for themselves, or they lack the capacity to do so because of dementia or some other reason, then what you can do is you can file a guardianship action. A guardianship action is where the court appoints somebody to make decisions either on behalf of the person and or the estate or both, and then you are appointed guardian to be able to go to the doctor appointments, direct the doctor as to what to do, direct the medicine to be ordered, etc. These things require a medical report, so a physician will need to be involved. If your parent won't allow you to see the physician, you might have to file a guardianship action and your attorney file a motion asking that the court order the doctor to give such a report because of the conduct or whatever's happening. I remember early on in my career, and obviously we can't talk about specific cases, but a familiarity to some degree with a case where there had been a father and he was burning the hot dogs on the stove because he had early stage of dementia, and he put the hot dog on for lunch, and then he'd walk away and he'd forget about it. And the fire department had been out to the home like 4 or 5 times, and they were concerned and brought the children in and said, something's got to be done here because this apartment unit is going to go. It's going to be a fire one day. And so that took the action, and then the children had to walk through the guardianship, and the father contested it, and it ended up costing them way too much money over something that should have been handled much easier, because had they taken care of the paperwork early on, the child could have gone to the doctor and said, is this a decision that I need to be making because dad is now of that point that he's not able to make those decisions? And remember, some people, unfortunately, in dementia, they go in and out. So you don't have anything in place. It makes it very difficult. I recommend to everybody listening here today, take steps so that you can avoid all those conflicts. It becomes so easy. Think about another situation. Your parent is at home and they're suffering, and you might see their legs swelling, and maybe you're suggesting, maybe congestive heart failure. You can't get them to go to the emergency room. You call the ambulance. They can't force that individual to go. They have no power. So here you're stuck. You have to go to court. It takes a long time to get a guardianship. And in the meantime, your loved one's suffering there because guess what? Mom or dad, they're not going to the emergency room. They just don't want to do it. And you're in that emotional turmoil. So my message to everybody is, let's avoid all of that. It's enough stress that mom or dad, they're going to be going through this, and you're going to have to deal with it. But when you've got these agonizing additions, it just rips families apart. And I think it's a tragedy to not take care of it.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And I really appreciate the additional insight that you're sharing. So I don't want to take up much more of your time, but I really would love to get you back because I want to talk a little bit more about life insurance as well. The importance of reviewing your beneficiaries, because things change. As life change, your policies may need to change. And I hear that with the estate planning as well. So that's something that's relevant in our world, but I see that it's relevant in your world as well when it comes to estate planning. It's important to review. It keeps peace of mind. It helps save money. And it gives someone the ability to speak on your behalf when you can't, but you've already told them this is what's important to me. So anything that I miss, Gwen?
No, but I think your point is well taken about the seasons of life. Just like you need to have insurance checkups with Doranita, you need to have estate planning checkups because things do change. Your relationships change, your medical procedures or your preferences may change. And so doing this on a regular basis is always a great idea. So I appreciate that you're doing this for your clients because it's so important that you hear it from somebody else that, look, you're going to go through unnecessary time, aggravation, emotion, and expense. All of those things if you don't take care of business. So
absolutely. Well, Gwen, I thank you so much.
You're
welcome. I look
welcome.
forward to seeing you soon. So
all right, we'll do.
Family Law, and your information is there. So we hope that if anyone is looking, please be sure that you reach out. Thank you.
Yes,
so
and
much.
we give a free consultation to anybody who wants to call so we can answer some of these questions as well. Thanks, Doranita, for your time.
Hey, thank you too. I really appreciate you.